Mr. Hobbs, 4 years ago you were approached by Vahe and Viken Yakupian to help them, as one of the Armenian American newspapers stated, to resurrect the ancient viticultural heritage of Armenia. At first you explained your role as being to provide expertise and information on the market. But correct me if I'm wrong, you went further with cooperation with Yakupian brothers.
That's quite correct. In fact, I think when I met Vahe and Viken, the idea was, this is 2008, they invited me to come to Armenia, they told me about their family background, the history of Armenia, and so after that particular visit, I was quite interested. There was also another important element, and that had to do with one of the top winemakers and a historian winemaker by the name of Warren Winiarski at Stags Leap Wine Cellars. And he had a celebration, and after that celebration, for the winemakers that used to work for him, he gave everyone a silver vial with 2 ancient seeds, and he said, these are the seeds that started the industry of wine. So that's began, this is a long time ago that he did that. So when I met the Cuban brothers and came here, the whole thing came together. And yes, the answer is I'm actively involved as a partner.
How's your business here?
Well, we're new. I mean, we have been essentially 8 years in the making. There's been a lot of work, a lot of commitment, and we are just beginning to launch our new wines internationally and here in Armenia. So we're at the very infancy, the beginning, if you will, of our venture in terms of commercial side. But we've been working, we're planting our own new vineyard, and so on and so forth, which we haven't production from that yet, but we hope to have production by 2020.
One of your interviews to Forbes, you've talked about your project in Armenia, and you said Armenia is like going to dark ages of winemaking. We have logistics issues as well as expertise and supply concerns. What would you say to Forbes now, in terms of right now? Are we still in dark ages, or?
We're beginning to see the light.
Okay.
There's still many challenges to overcome, but we see a sort of a renaissance or maybe a revolution occurring with a lot of interest in wine. Logistics are still complicated. Getting equipment, high quality equipment, and so on and so forth. There's going to be a number of things that we still need to overcome. However, it's much better today than it was just 3 or 4 years ago.
2 days ago, there was a wine festival here in Armenia on Starian Street. Have you had a chance to participate, to see what's going on, to taste Armenian wines?
Well, by luck, I happened to see the aftermath.
Okay.
Which was it must have been an extraordinary event, because there was a lot of, let's say, afterglow from the event. So we didn't actually see the event itself. We saw sort of like the wind down of the event. But this is very exciting to see. I mean, it sort of like reminded me of Mendoza's Fiesta de la Vendimia, which is one of the largest wine festivals in the world. And so to see this happening in Armenia is very reassuring, and maybe gives me even more optimism.
At the beginning, you have said to journalists that you are planning to try some Bordeaux varieties here, or Cabernet Sauvignon, Malbec, and even Chardonnay or Pinot Noir. But you've said that it all depends on winter.
Yes.
So after 8 years, what do you say? What is the best 1 year to have here in Armenia, taking into account the winters?
Well, let me just say that it's taken a long time. We're actually just putting those vines in the ground this year. We just finished the planting. It'll be we need next year to get the vine up to the wire. And so it'll be 2 or 3 years more before we have production from those vineyards. In the meantime, we're going to make investment in for our particular vineyard that's in the Vajdator region, we are going to make investment in a weather station so we can track. Because currently the only true method of following the weather and to understand which would be the best varieties is my iPhone. And I track that with other regions that I work in the world. and it is cold here. We can see, for example, yesterday when we were in the vineyard, the buds and the new shoots are only a couple of centimeters long, whereas in California we have this much growth. In France, the growth is like that. So in the southern part of France, if they didn't get hurt by the frost.
So
It's colder.
It's colder.
Yes.
It's
We're at high
problematic.
No.
No?
No, but many people think it's problematic, but we don't look at it that way. First of all, we're on slopes of anywhere from 5 to 10 to 15% degrees of slope. And that gives very good drainage both for air, so cold air goes downslope. And no, we don't see a problem at all because the region is ideally suited. I mean, I look back, when we first came here in 2008, 2009, we scoured the country. We traveled to the north, to the northeast, and we looked at many places and finally settled on the southeast region of Azor. However, what we found was that people from many years ago already figured out where the best places are. So we didn't really discover anything new. We learned from people that have done this work for thousands of years here already. So it was very easy in a way to find the top locations. And they picked great sites with good drainage. So no, we don't see a problem. Any area requires that you adapt the viticulture and the cultivars to that region. So the way we farm it, the types of vines that we plant will depend on the things that we learn over the next 5 or 10 years.
Do you think Armenia has a potential to have good wines here, to be able to compete with, for example, Argentinian wines in terms of quality and price?
Why else would I fly halfway around the world? When I first saw the vineyard sites here, it's not only the historical, of course that is very attractive, and I didn't get it. I mean, this new find, the world's oldest winery in RNA1, the cave at RNA1, was something that came after I started coming to Armenia. So that just gave even more richness, if you will, to our endeavors here. But
historical background.
How many people or how many places on the planet can have that authenticity with wine? So that's a very exciting, as a wine professional, as a winemaker, it's a privilege to work here. And to answer your question, I have every reason to believe that once we sort of do our homework, we will find the best. Obviously already the local varieties are outstanding. They've been here for thousands of years, but we want to also try international varieties and see how they perform. And that's going to take us time to learn which are going to be the best, how to farm them. That could be a 20 or 25 year process just to get the ground floor. Yeah, it's going to take time.
Wow. You are credited with recognizing the winemaking potential in Argentina and also making Argentinian wine worldwide phenomena. What should Armenia do to repeat the success or to be the second Argentina?
Well, probably there are some things that can follow and other things we will have to find a way. It always helps when you have something indigenous. For example, in the case of Argentina, even though I didn't go to Argentina looking for Malbec, but once you're there and you start seeing the grape and then you're seeing why are the Argentines not appreciating the value of this grape? So maybe they know something that I don't know. So at any rate, you just try it yourself. And here I think it's going to be the same. There's local varieties, and I'm not alone with my partners. There are others doing this work as well here, and very good work. With that, we're going to start learning which are the local varieties of the highest quality. That will be what we hang our hat on. However, at the same time, we want to work with internationally known varieties, because I believe that Armenia, I don't know which varieties yet, whether it's Pinot Noir Cabernet Franc.
You didn't know.
We don't
know. 4 years ago, but you didn't know even now. When you will know?
We don't know yet. We're still in the dark.
All right.
We're still in the learning curve.
Because it takes time.
It does. I mean, it's taken us to buy land, to develop land. We're doing that. There's really today, with all due respect to my colleagues and other people in the industry here, I think on an international scale, there's no really, truly top quality vineyard. And that's what we're trying to set up. So that's a high density planting in the best regions. So we're not looking so much for a commercial project as we are an artisanal project. And we want to really find out what can Armenia do, not only with its historical varieties, but with world-class known varieties. And so that's a really very long burn. You don't get to know that. It's not like making a batch of beer.
You've met with Prime Minister. You had a breakfast together. What's your impression? How's government is trying to kind of push the wine industry into something that is bigger than right now?
Yes. Well, this morning we breakfast with the Prime Minister, as you mentioned, and also with the Minister of Agriculture. And we are heartened and encouraged by their awareness of the power of what wine can do for Armenia, and not only in Armenia, but its perception in the world, and also their support. I mean, very encouraging. They have a good sense of awareness and of knowledge. And so, curiously, the Prime Minister asked me if I would be the godfather of the wine development program here. And of course, I have no Italian roots, so no Italian blood, so I don't know if I'd make a good godfather. But it's a very flattering request. I was most impressed with the Minister of Agriculture. I think he has the right ideas. He wants to work with us to share ideas.
He has a background of industry because he came from Pernod Ricard.
Correct. So he's already he's very savvy. He's very sharp, a gentleman. And then, so we work internationally. So I think how are we going to advance and how are we going to make those advancements more quickly is what we've been discussing. And the key is talent. How do we educate the young people here, get them the exposure, how to make wines, international exposure, bring that back to Armenia? That will accelerate dramatically the way the industry could possibly grow here. And that could also bring an international investment as well.
French have Pernod Ricard here owns Yerevan Brandy Company, and we export Armenian cognacs to the Russian market. It's
yes.
Our traditional market.
Yes.
Do you think that Armenian wines have potential to be second Armenian cognacs for Russian? Because they love to drink, they still drink vodka, but there is a mood switch
yes.
into the wine.
Yes.
And there are a lot of Russian billionaires recently that make fortune having wineries or wine restaurants importing wines. So what do you think about the Russian market?
Well,
for Armenians wine?
We think that not only Russia, but we think, if we look at and focus on Russia alone, that this will be a very natural connection in Georgia as well. But right now the perception is mostly Armenia is a cognac producing country, and that's not only Russians thinking that, that's Americans thinking that, and so on. So that's our objective. I mean, our work is we see the possibility that the wine is more important than the cognac. Look at the history of the country, of Armenia. I mean, it's about wine. It's 6,000 years of wine, not a cognac making. So my personal feeling, yes, you need higher quality grapes to make high quality wines. That's more investment, more knowledge, and so on. It's much easier to grow basically raw material to make brandy or cognacs. Far easier, far cheaper, and so on and so forth. You don't need to know much because the raw material can be very simple. Yeah. But to go high quality wine grapes, but that's where the future will be, and that's I see as a much stronger future for Armenia. Nothing against the branding industry, of course. We want that to stay strong. We want to augment it with what we're doing. We think that's going to be good for both industries.
One of your interviews, you said that wines are becoming popular in even in the regions that they never have been. For example, in Asia.
Yeah.
How is it possible, for example, for China, because they have their own traditional national drinks, or in Japan? Do you think this kind of why wine is becoming more popular?
Well, the first thing I would say to that is, as young people, consider wine a healthier drink. There's a worldwide movement for healthier dining and drinking. So I think harder spirits, yes, there's still plenty of room for that. But I think, like this one black gentleman told me in Chicago not long ago, he was giving me a ride from the airport to pick up my rent-a-car. And we started a conversation. He found out that I was a winemaker. And he said, oh, that's the way you get the ladies. So
yeah,
he sees that's his way to impress the ladies. So I have to learn about wine. So then I have to tell him as much as I can in the short 10 minutes so that he can impress the ladies.
Budweiser will not.
That's kind of what I suppose. Yeah, that's what he's saying. So I think if you see, for example, the Chinese market, it's the young women under 30 that are driving the future of what's going to be consumed in China. So what we're doing as an example, and we hope to export to China, what we're doing in China is we want to introduce them to wines from Armenia. Today, the Chinese, there's really two things. One, they look to France. That's the only place. They have a very traditional mindset. So when they think of wine, the older Chinese drinkers, it's France.
It's
But
like
the young,
stereotype.
but the young people, but the young people, let's call them millennials or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever name or nomenclature we want to give this younger generation,
We call
they
it
have a
now
very open mind.
Generation Y.
Generation Y.
Yeah.
Well, they have a very open, and I think the other side of it that's crucial is that China is developing its own wine industry that will make wine more part of their national fabric, more about their own identity. It won't be just we're importing wine from other countries and that's an exotic thing to do. No, it's going to become more of the daily fabric of a young person's life. And they consider that to be healthy. It's certainly stimulating intellectually because young people, I mean, if we were in a room like this in China and I'm introducing the wine, the Chinese, I don't know how they do it, but they will fill the room. There's no space for anybody, and they're just all ears. They just want to learn. It's extraordinary.
They kind of, they quick to learn and quick to produce their own.
Yes.
Once you said that your hurdle in wine business is helping people understand how wine can add to the enrichment of life, much like good theater, a good movie, or a beautiful work of art. Really?
Absolutely. It's part of a sophisticated and cultural. Wine becomes part of that kind of, part of the equation, if you will, of fine living. Mm-hmm. And it's not just enough to make a lot of money. Let's say I'm an oil tycoon, for example, out of Houston, Texas, or somewhere. Well, you can make a lot of money and not even necessarily be very clever just because you happen to be at the right place at the right time. Now, these people are also looking for ways to enrich their life, to give their life more meaning and value. And wine is a tremendous, because it's a very dynamic product all over the world. And if you love travel and food, wine is clearly going to be a part of that.
How much do you drink per day?
I never really give that a tremendous amount of thought. Depends on how I'm. But
When
I would
do
say,
you drink?
I'd say
I mean,
about
have you
probably half a bottle on average. About half a bottle per day.
But after 6 p.m. or something like that, so you can have wine, for example,
Well,
for the breakfast or something.
Well, we did
It's
today.
kind of evening drinks.
So in Armenia, that seems that maybe that's possible. But no, to be honest with you, I would never drink wine for breakfast, and sometimes for lunch. But mostly we enjoy wine around the family table in the evening, and that slows down the whole meal process. So I know that's wine tends to do that, because with a glass of wine, rather than just feeding yourself like refueling the gas tank. You take a little more time, talk about the wine, spend a little time with your family, and that's what we do. I mean, so we normally spend at least an hour at the dinner table. In that situation, my wife and I will drink a bottle of wine with our 3-year-old daughter and our 6-month-old daughter.
Forbes called you the Steve Jobs of wine business. Do you agree or disagree with this statement?
How could I disagree with Forbes?
It's a good compliment.
I think it's a nice compliment. It's interesting that they came up with that. Steve Jobs likes to innovate, and we do as well. I mean, I do.
What is your biggest innovation that kind of you think that it matters most?
Well, I don't have something as broadly known as an iPhone or something to that effect, but probably the work that I did in Argentina with Malbec would be number one. And then also, I would say in California, my work on vineyard designates. Single vineyard, isolation, making wines. That would probably be best known of my activities. But that's what people know. I think the real work is in the trenches, and the main work is in the vineyards. So that has probably caused a shift in California winemaking in the top regions, and certainly it's caused a shift in Argentina. As a winemaker, that's not really new. The Europeans have been doing that for eons. But in the New World, winemakers and viticulturists were kept in two separate camps. And as I grew up in farming on an apple farm near Buffalo, New York, I just had farming in my blood. So I suppose I think the number one thing is the vineyard, and I spend time in the vineyard. And I think that has been transmitted. Now we find a lot of winemakers, for example, in California, Argentina, Uruguay, and Chile, walking the vineyards, spending time in the vineyard. And that's making the world of wine a lot better for everyone.
Mr. Hobbs, thank you very much for the interview. And please teach me how to drink first glass of wine.
Let's try our new wine. This is Jacobian Hobbs.
Is your brand?
This is our new brand, which we're launching here this month and also in the US. It's a very small project. This is the Irony grape from Vallée d'Azur, and it's aged in French oak barrels. So, as you can see, with wine, we like to appreciate the color. And you can see it has a very beautiful saturated garnet pigmentation. So that's actually one of the most important clues about quality, because if there's a brown or orange color, then the wine is probably tired and getting defective.
Really?
Sorry?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. So the color is a key indicator of quality.
What is the best quality? It's rose or when it
will depend on the variety.
Yeah.
And so every variety has its own color fingerprint. To give you an example, Malbec has more blue and violet tones. Cabernet Sauvignon is a garnet or deep red, dark brick color. And Irony, well, you can see, is mostly in the red hues.
Okay.
There's a very light blue tint, but for the most part. So once you learn that, you will know almost by looking at the wine what variety you're drinking.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers. It tastes good.
This is the key.
Yeah. Mr. Hobbs, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.